Welcome back to Fresh Outlook, everybody. Another volume of March Madness comes to a glorious close. The men's basketball teams of both the University of Wisconsin and Duke University entertained millions of viewers nationwide, an event that generated absurd amount of money for CBS and Turner Broadcasting. But the players themselves got zippo, nothing, zilch, nada. I'm joined by the Ebru think tank, Dr. Ellen Staurowsky, Professor of Sports Management at Drexel University. Jean-Paul Gonzalez, All In, is the name of his motivational speaking enterprise. Tom Pruscia, Economics Professor at Rutgers University. Joining us live via Skype, Oliver Davis-Urman, CEO of Fan Angel. And since you're in the box already, I will begin with you, Oliver. What are your thoughts on athletes getting paid? Let's do a round robin on this first.
Thanks for having me, Logan. Fan Angel is a crowdfunding news and social media website that enables fans to come together and make a difference in sports. And we absolutely believe that college athletes deserve to be paid. We think it's moral high ground, and our platform enables fans to come together and make a difference as it relates to getting behind that activity.
All right, Tom Pruscia joining us here in studio. What are your thoughts on athletes getting paid?
Absolutely. From an economic perspective, this fact that we don't pay student athletes is clearly an artificial max set on what they should be compensated for during their time on college. They get tuition, they get room and board, etc. But there's no reason at all, given the value that the athletes generate for the universities, the NCAA, and the wider community, these student athletes deserve to be paid.
Jean-Paul Gonzalez.
I would have to say that I'm not in favor of them getting paid while in college. I feel if the purpose of a university is to educate, that should be made a clear stance. If they really want to get paid, I fear we should develop farm systems in place for them to be able to express themselves. The European model, if you're the best at 16 at soccer, you don't go to college to play soccer. You start playing for Barcelona, you start playing for Chelsea. I feel if we have those in place, then we can keep education where it should be and the college and universities as the main focus, and professional athletics where it should be in that box, and they can get paid as much as they want.
Ellen Staurowsky, what are your thoughts?
I think, first of all, I want to clarify who I'm talking about in terms of the college athletes that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the big-time football and men's basketball players and possibly women's basketball players. They contribute in terms of their performances. They contribute 70 to 90% of the entire economic structure of the college sport industry. So I'm really recognizing that group of laborers that have gone unrecognized as such for a long time. And I think the reason why we need to think of them as workers is the structure has been designed to control them in a way that maximizes profits for the industry, but has limited their rights and also their ability to access fair compensation within a fair market.
But where does it stop, Ellen? Do we start paying the best high school basketball players as well? Are we no longer talking about amateur sports? And perhaps things have just gotten out of hand, that these schools shouldn't be recruiting under the table, over the table, or however they're doing it to get these superstar players. Maybe colleges should be more about educating those five men on the basketball court.
Yeah, I think there's a mythology around this whole notion of amateurism. If you listen to somebody like Frank DeFord, the esteemed sports writer, he talks about the fact that even the Greeks would have thought that our concept of amateurism is ridiculous. That there's never been a time when we haven't had top-tier athletes who received some form of compensation. I don't think that it has to be thought of in that harsh sort of either-or dynamic. We have many people who work on college campuses. We have many undergraduates who are actually workers who receive a paycheck, who also go on to get their degrees. So I think what we have to do is we have to engage in truth-telling, to say that what we're doing here is that we have a workforce in place in terms of big-time football, big-time basketball. We know that these are incredibly lucrative entities. We know that they compete with other professional leagues and that they should be treated under those same set of rules. So I think all of that can happen and everything else sorts out on the other side. I don't think it has to be either or.
I'm a journalist, we only do either or, but nuances are for the professors and the intellectuals.
There you go.
get your point.
I understand.
Jean-Paul, a lot of this resonating to you. You look like Superman here. What sport did you play in college? I'm presuming you played one?
I played basketball at Division III Montclair State University.
Okay.
So I did not receive an athletic scholarship, but I did have the chance to perform at a high level and actually go on to play in the NBA. And very quickly I saw, just to be honest, from a Division III standpoint, we didn't receive athletic scholarships. So I took a stance, even though the rest of my friends went to Division I schools. I said I'm going to play as hard as I can, and then when I take off my jersey for the last time senior year, we'll see what happens. I did have opportunities after that. I feel sports taught me a tremendous amount of hard work, character, just huge things. And the funny thing is I had to do it on my own. I didn't have anyone paying me for it. I didn't have a scholarship around my neck. Those are things I still carry to this day, and now I'm able to talk all around the country, and I do a lot of addressing to NBA teams for motivational speaking as well, and they're always kind of shocked from that standpoint. But I say, well, it's the things you learn on your own that you do when no one's behind you, when no one's putting something to your head or putting the money out there, because we all know money is a poor motivation. That really doesn't motivate you to greatness. It's something that comes from inside of here, and if it's not there to start with, it's not going to be there when you pay someone a large sum. So that's kind of my feeling towards it. I do respect the fact that there is a lot of time taken in college athletics. You do put in a lot of time in the weight room, study, film. 100%, it is a job. It definitely is. But at the same time, it's an investment. I'm just going to a job and say, what? I worked hard nights. I should get more money. No, we all know we have to put in our time. And then if that opportunity comes later on, we have the ability to step forward. So for me, I loved my education. I even took an extra semester to finish my degree. So I feel education is probably the greatest gift we can give them. If you want to go to college and get an education, you do that. Now, you're not going to play at the top level, just like in Europe, where the top level is performed at a professional scale. You know that, but it's an investment you make. I know I'm going to play, but if I want to play at the top level, I play in a farm system.
Okay, let me turn to Oliver for just a second. Oliver, do you think there's too much emphasis on college campuses when it comes to sports?
Well, that's a big driver in I think the college experience at a lot of these places. A lot of students, whether they're playing sports or not, go to be a part of what is described as the college experience. And I think that college athletics is certainly a big part of that, depending on where you go. I would say in response to the other points made here that the controversy isn't whether or not college athletes should be paid. The controversy is, why are we denying this specific group of individuals a basic American right?
But Oliver, let me interrupt you for just a second. Why not become a professional player then? Or why not join a farm league, as Jean-Paul suggests? There are lots of ways to make money as an athlete. You just don't happen to get paid if you're doing it as a college athlete. Your thoughts?
Sure. Well, it's a negative trend that we're starting to see now, which is the concept of none and done. But when it relates to football and basketball, you must go somewhere out of high school and spend a certain amount of time, which is different in the NFL and the NBA, before you can go pro. I don't think it benefits anybody to see our nation's top talent leave the country to earn a paycheck in order to play sports at a high level. And obviously, college sports are a part of the fabric of American society and culture. And, I think that at the end of the day, when we look at, other scholarship or self-pay students on campus, if a student goes on to, on a writing scholarship to write a New York Times best-selling book, they aren't prohibited from prospering off the value of their work. If a student on an acting scholarship goes on to participate in a multi-million movie franchise, they aren't prohibited from prospering off the value of their work. And we'd just like to see college athletes be extended that same right and be treated equally.
Tom, where does it stop? Does the women's lacrosse team get paid? Does the curling team get paid? Does the intramural softball team get paid? Does the best player on the basketball team make X number of hundreds of thousands of dollars while the scrub gets, $20,000, $30,000? You're really opening up a can of worms.
Right, and this is one of the things that would have to be decided about whether it should only be the revenue-generating sports, which is just a handful of sports, or all. My own
But
view,
then you'd have people saying, that's sexist because it's only the male sports.
My own view is that they're all this would be a collective decision by the university that all our student athletes deserve some type of compensation, and I'd have no problem that if it was the high revenue generating sports were paid more, but I think all our student athletes should be getting paid, and that's part of the commitment. When you make a decision to have big time athletic program, it would be easy to build in this cost, we would just maybe need to pay our assistant coaches and our head coaches less than $4 million a year, right? There's revenue that's currently in the system that is being allocated to uses. It's just not being allocated to the people who are generating the revenue, and that's a problem. The students don't have the ability. All the universities, by the way, are in this cartel. Right now, it's not possible for Ohio State to say we're now paying $25,000 a year for our football athletes, right? So it is a challenge right now for the workers. There is a certain set of rules that have been collectively agreed. These are not the set of rules that Google and Microsoft, as they compete with each other for engineers, they haven't collectively agreed that they're not going to pay an engineer a fixed amount of money. That would be clearly against the law. So the NCAA has this out, and I think it's an unfair system for our student athletes.
Jean-Paul, what happened to just playing the game because you love the sport?
I think that went away the second you continue to introduce these incentives. I come from a background, I'll be honest, I came from the days when high school athletes could still go to the NBA. One of my close friends, a guy named Lenny Cook, we don't like to say his name because he was given the ability to go to the NBA, but now he works at a warehouse and lives with his mom and his fiance. Now, I don't say that boastfully, I say that that's a sad condition.
Right.
These 7 players that just committed from Kentucky, I wish them the best of success. But we all know that in Anthony Davis's draft class a couple of years ago, 7 players also committed. There's only 2 that are still in the NBA. Who knows where the other 5 were that still don't have their degrees?
So your point is, get your education, use college for what it's for, to become educated, and you won't live in your mother's basement.
I would almost prefer this fact. We still give scholarships, but they're not called athletic scholarships. They're called academic scholarships. Every team has one, and so therefore the importance is then placed back on academics. You can still play basketball, but your GPA is then more important than your grade point average.
Ellen, do you think some of these student athletes get a free ride in college that they're not expected to perform? There's a kind of a wink and nod system that takes place between the student, the professors, or the coaches are helping them get into the right classes where much won't be expected of them.
Yeah, well, I want to speak just a minute to the term student athlete. The term student athlete was actually invented by the NCAA to avoid worker compensation cases. So I think if you acknowledge the fact that the system has been built on a fraud, then all of our other discussions are distorted by that. In terms of this whole discussion about the slippery slope and whether or not we need to pay athletes, in Division III or whatever, I think what we first really have to recognize is if we are denying athletes basic rights, those have to be addressed. There is no justification for exploiting athletes and their economic power in order to build a profitable enterprise. And that's really, I think, what's at stake here. And so in terms of value, none of that will be fairly determined until the people who are the ones who are generating that revenue have an opportunity to sit at the table and negotiate on their own behalf. The NCAA rules expressly deny athletes the opportunity for agents, the opportunity for legal assistance when they're negotiating even their scholarships. And so we can't talk about value until we make sure that they have their rights. And the portal to allow them to have their rights is an employment status.
Okay, let's turn for final thoughts to Oliver. Oliver, as I hear Ellen talk, I'm thinking lawsuit. Why doesn't somebody just sue the NCAA or their school or both, go after those deep pockets and say, hey, because of my athletic prowess, I earned X number of dollars for you, show me the money?
Well, it's a complicated issue, and I think that we've seen recently the students at Northwestern come together to try to unionize and take that on. But at the end of the day, these are very young people who are who benefit from this system in some ways, but are contributing more than obviously what they get out of it. And it comes down to what Ellen said. We're denying this group of people, basic rights, and that's a problem. And when it comes to some of the points that were brought up earlier, yes, I think that organically students want to come to these schools. They want to get an education. They want to perform at the highest level. They want to, play on Saturdays afternoons on national television and, be a part of all that. But if we're not giving them their basic rights, then we're failing them. And I think that things are being done, like our platform, Fan Angel, to address that and bring the conversation to the forefront where something will be done about it.
Okay, Oliver, thank you very much. The Ebru think tank, thank you very much for your thoughts on this topic as well. When we come back, it is time for the lightning round, from stamping out a misquote to going gaga over Google.